Hi, it's me again, Tony Buglis, Methodist minister, thinking about disciples and apostles and people. Among all of the big names, the folk that there are lots and lots of stories about, you've always got the ones that are sort of just on the sidelines. And the one that I'm fascinated by at the moment is Matthias. He only happens in the beginning of the Acts of the Apostles, where they get together. There's the 11 among the 120 because it was a big crowd. And they've got to have somebody else to replace Judas. Yeah, Judas, he's a problem. We'll think about him on another occasion. But as far as they were concerned, there was a gap. They wanted somebody to fill. So they prayed about it. They drew lots. And I love the way it says in some of the old translations, and the lot fell on Matthias. Sounds very, very messy. Right, there he was, part of the crowd. They're all praying together. They're looking for somebody to stand up with Peter and James and John and all the rest of them. And Matthias. And I can just imagine him saying, "Who? Me?" He's been around. It's not as if he's just come on the scene. The book of Acts says he'd been with Jesus since Jesus was baptized by John. That's what, 3 years before? He's been part of the backup crew. He's been part of the team, part of the support. There was a lot of them there. Well, there was 120. But he'd just never been chosen as an apostle. So this made him quite unique in the crew. Well, now he's been chosen. They laid hands on him and he's part of the team. And then, now, we don't see his name mentioned again. He's not mentioned in any of the three Gospels. There are no stories about him. He just vanishes into history. There's only that little bit in Acts. I've always been interested with the way that the story unfolds then, because you've got the 11 and Matthias is added to the 11, and then he sort of disappears. But the one who comes in and steals the limelight most of the time is Paul, who comes along a good bit later, but he comes along and he takes over and he's this major apostle and he's determined. You read his letters, he says, "I am definitely, truly an apostle. I was chosen by the risen one," etc., etc., etc. And there's a bit of you thinks, do you think they got it wrong when they chose Matthias? They should have waited for God to send Paul. Well, I'm not convinced of that either, but again, we'll talk about Paul on another occasion. So, I mean, why does he take up? Well, that's partly because the book of Acts was written by Paul's pal Luke, and Luke was with Paul, and so he's telling stories of things that he knew about because he was with Paul, and partly because, well, to be honest, Paul did sort of take over a bit, doesn't he? Anyway, Matthias, what happened to him? Well, like I say, there is nothing in the Gospels and nothing in the histories. So it's really more a case of what are people saying about him? And it's a typical thing that when you don't have the facts, you don't have the evidence, you get stories being told, you get legends and traditions. I mean, there's one set of traditions, mainly among the Greeks, that he preached up through Cappadocia, which is part of Asia Minor in what is now Turkey, and went up as far as the Caspian Sea, preached around there. There's another set of stories that he preached in Judea. Well, that's where they were, Jerusalem, Judea. Start off from there. Off they go in all different directions. And he ended up in what is now Georgia, the modern state of Georgia, where one of the legends is that he was stoned to death. There is also a legend that his bones, from wherever they were brought back to Italy by Constantine's mother. The Emperor Constantine, the first Christian emperor, his mother Helena went to the Holy Land, did her pilgrimage, and she spotted all sorts of places, identified where the Sermon on the Mount was preached, and so on. Well, she said, "This is where Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount, isn't it?" And they would have said, "Well, yeah, of course. Yes, miss. Yes, miss." And they built a church on the site. Well, nobody's going to argue with the Empress, are they? So she collected his bones and took them back to Italy, and they were, well, she collected so much. We don't know. There's no way of knowing. Legend, history, all we can say for sure is as well as what we can read between the lines in the Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles and so on, you've got this picture of this spreading church, the team spread out from Jerusalem. It says it in Acts, from Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and on to the ends of the world. Off they went in all directions. Some of them have got their stories being told. Lots of them we don't know about. We just know that the gospel spread. And we know it spread because we've got the evidence in the churches that were there, the places that Paul and company went to. It spread all over the place. So it's like watching your team play and you know the names of the star players, but in the chorus line, in the back team, all the rest of it, there are those you just know that he went that way and he did that, and they went that way and she did that, but we don't know what their names were. Part of the team, nevertheless. So there were lots who, like Matthias, who heard the call, said, "Who? Me?" And then got on with the job, did what God wanted. I'd like to think that that's me. Who? Me? Ordinary Geordie lad, grew up on a council estate in North Shields, went to high school, didn't get to university first time because, well, I passed my French and I passed my German, I failed my English. Perhaps there's some languages Geordies just don't do very well. But then God called me to be a minister, and within years I was a minister and a chaplain and an RAF chaplain and a prison chaplain and a hospital chaplain and a minister and a superintendent minister. And who? Me? Well, I've done what I could. And although I'm retired now, I'm still doing it when they let me, preach here and talk there. What about you? Have you heard God saying, "Are you going to go for me? The lot fell on you. I'm pointing at you. You can do this because you know these people. You can do this because this has happened to you. You've met me there. Go and do this for me." And you're saying, "Who? Me?" And God says, "Yeah, come on, we'll do it together."